One of the most interesting examples that we look at in terms of global business is Apple. Why? It's the biggest company in the world. It's the wealthiest company in the world. It's nearly ubiquitous. Its impact on our culture is unimaginable. It, of course, invented the smartphone, gave the platform of online music trading and video trading through the iTunes Store legal legitimacy. It has revolutionized really modern day social media by, of course, giving social media a platform to exist upon. Now, with ubiquitousness of this product comes its ubiquitousness of consumers and its global supply chain. If I wanted to write about this particular company in an assignment, I might first look at the pestle framework. And one of the biggest drivers that we have now, of course, is socially. We have trends that we can look at and attitudes and behaviors against giant corporate monsters. And that is certainly something that we've seen, a distrust in the corporation itself. And certainly Apple being one of the biggest corporations in the world would fit into that purview. Equally, I look at the politics, the P in the pestle. We're in the middle of a trade war. We're literally looking at factory Asia, where most of these goods are produced, and China produces. Let's see, there is an article here in The Economist about this very topic, and it says that smartphones accounted for 5% of Chinese exports, finished products. And we've heard a lot about Foxconn, a company that produces LCD screens, amongst other things, or maybe involved in other parts of the supply chain. So that's one of those companies that we can actually follow all around the world because, you guessed it, they're caught right in the middle of the trade wars. So Foxconn, which we heard about a few years ago because of the worker conditions in Asia, that there were workers who were so overworked in their conditions, even when it was felt that they were given transparent working clauses about their rights, about their ability to have breaks, to determine their working hours, their living conditions, because many of them live on campuses that are supplied by the work itself away from cities. They were worked to exhaustion, to suicide. And worse, once this was reported upon, it became reported upon because those workers had mobile phones themselves and recorded what was going on, workers falling asleep on the assembly line. They uploaded videos to social media, public pressure mounted. The company, Apple, said, well, we have these people sign a contract and they say that they have the rights and they've been informed of their rights. Of course, social media again showed videos of people being bullied and harassed by their local managers into signing these clauses and not giving any of the freedoms that they were promised. We saw the company then put up safety nets around the building so that when workers exhausted, horrified from the working conditions, having no other way out, jumped and leapt to their deaths, that company put up safety nets. That was their answer. So we've seen a decay in public trust of the corporation and the he said, she said that goes behind it, because ultimately, if we can't govern multinationals, then who can? But at the same time, we love them and we need them and we depend upon them. So it's not just about putting them out of business, but it's about calling each other to account, both us as consumers, but also these companies that have so much power. To that extent, I would like to introduce to you this new idea of what's going on now with the trade wars and why this is such an interesting case. So Foxconn is now outsourced to Vietnam. Workers in China are both consuming iPhones and are more expensive to produce them, so they're finding ever cheaper places. But now it's not just about the ever cheaper place to invest, because now politics are driving this. And with the trade war, companies are being told in America, and Apple is an American company, you have to come back. So they opened a plant. They announced it this past summer. They broke ground. They promised 13,000 jobs in the state of Wisconsin. So by what can we measure this investment if we're looking at its sustainability? Well, I've already said we look at the pestle framework and engaging what are the primary drivers. But now if we're looking at its sustainability in its global supply chain, and in this particular moment in time, well, I would say the triple bottom line. By what measures is this forward-thinking factory going to be green, have equitable, sustainable relationships with these 13,000 people that they're hiring. Okay, so people, planet, profit. Immediately, there were accusations by local advocates and the public about the land that the company would acquire and set up its factory. They, in fact, would have to drain part of the Lake Michigan. People-wise, they managed this. In fact, this was part of their strategy. They said they committed to hiring 3,000 veterans. The state itself of Wisconsin offered the company $5 million to train the people that it could potentially hire and advanced manufacturing techniques. So this is an all-in. The public is involved and invested in this company setting up this practice. Is it balanced between just the company's profit and the needs of the public to A, have jobs, to B, to have quality air? And that's the second part of the planet that's coming up. Initiatives that I've been researching about are, what are people saying about the quality of air? And in fact, the permit that some people are saying is quite dodgy, that the company received from the state environmental authority to build its factory. People were saying that maybe there was something going on with that permitting process. But even further, if I'm also looking at what would be a sustainable relationship with the community around it, I would also ask, are they building a smart city? And have they actually initiated plans to? Because again, after all, it's not that we just want to gentrify the local area where they will suddenly suck in a concentration of new workers, new jobs, and people in manufacturing jobs, people in engineering jobs, people in managerial jobs, and the sort. But they will also, of course, impact the entire local community landscape. There will be people who will live there. They will change the class structure. How will they enforce equity and not just gentrification, so that the wealthier people drive up local rents and push the local people out? So I will be looking for these sorts of plans. But again, these are my questions, and I want to have a more objective way of going about this. And this is where I would turn to research in this area about what does it mean to build a modern knowledge economy. And to that, I turn to Richard Florida's 3 T's: tolerance, tech, and technology. So Richard Florida says, in order for a region to build, it has to have these 3 things. And this says that you have to, A, have the technology that people need to have sustainable life in that area. We know now what that means. It not just means that people have access to Wi-Fi, people have access to the actual devices in an affordable way, but it also means smart buses. It also means smart libraries, other public facilities that are digitized, that we can have real-time public transportation, that we can have real-time opening hours of different public facilities, that you don't have to have waiting lines, that many things are digitized, including voting. These sorts of issues are so grand that certainly the businesses have to invest. What can Foxconn do in building a smart city? This is a question that I would be asking as I would go about in the investigation of engaging in a global supply chain. Whom would I be asking about? At the premise of this, of course, is the stakeholder framework that underlies this entire analysis. And in this instance, in thinking about the broader community, I would want to think about what is, as Richard Florida's theory suggests, what is the training pipeline that they're investing in? Are they training in education that would lead to the sorts of jobs that they offer? So from earlier education, technical education, university education, how are they engaging with local universities, local tech education, and that sort of thing? So these are the sorts of questions that I get to ask, and I ask them both through my passion about this subject, but also using these sustainability frameworks that allow me to ask the questions in a more objective way. Good luck to you. And as we're all consumers of this one grand company, it do behoove us to continue to ask the questions and continue to be responsible consumers for responsible business.